The Unwholesome Thoughts of the Five Lower Fetters, by Venerable Rungruang Papassaro, Dr. Rungruang Limchoopatipa. In order to study the boundless scope of unwholesome thoughts, the Buddha classified these unwholesome impressions into 5 distinct types, the 5 lower fetters of the middle defilements, namely sensual desire, ill will, depression, anxiety, and doubt. In mathematical topology, a particular unwholesome thought can be defined as an object like a ball moving in a space of 3 dimensions with x, y, the Z Cartesian coordinates, as illustrated as follows. 1. The x-axis of love or hate on the object of consciousness. A sensual desire. Sensual desire occurs after encountering with sensual stimuli from the world causing present feeling, then struggling with craving to demand more of such a feeling again with desire and lust. Investigating why the sensual desire is harmful. Commonly, every human being instinctively demands happiness, but the world has limited resources, therefore no one will always meet their expectations. And once experiencing the crash between the reality and the expectation, then the person will be in suffering. Sensual desire is a sigh of craving for pleasure on the matter. At the first look, it may appear to be harmless, because everyone also enjoys watching movie, reading novel. We know the movie and novel are not real, but we enjoy watching and reading it anyway. It seems that everyone wants to have some kinds of new experiences that they do not have it in everyday life. In this case, we should bring back to reality by establishing mindfulness in the present moment as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will get used to it without awareness. The most danger of getting used to sensual desire is that by having too much sensual desire into the story without mindfulness, and it will lead to greed, and try to satisfy the sensual desire by taking advantages from others. Conclusively, sensual desire leads to greed that leads to evil doing. Therefore, sensual desire is harmful to life no matter how little it is, and definitely sensual desire is unwholesome. We can enjoy and be happy with the incident in seclusion, but do not be trapped in it with sensual desire and greed. Ill will. Ill will occurs after encountering with unpresented stimuli from the world causing painful feeling, then struggling with craving to exterminate such a feeling. With desire and lust. Investigating why the ill will is harmful. Usually, no one wants to be harmed in danger. Unfortunately, we are living amidst competitions, and there will be someone trying to take advantage from others, one after the other. It is useless trying to get rid of all of them, because not only it is an impossible task, but it also leads to negative feeling with hatred to be aggression to others without no reason. Ill will is a sigh of craving for extermination on the matter. This phenomenon exhibits quite a strange behavior in such a way that when trying to exterminate it, the mind begins to get involved with it, even in the opposite direction. Naturally, whatsoever happening inside the mind will arise and fade away. However, if we try to exterminate it before it will fade away by itself, then the matter becomes reactivate again. And this is the reason why when trying to exterminate it by force, but as a result, the matter becomes more active and dominates the whole mind processing. At the first look, ill will may appear to be harmless because everyone wants to revenge to those who did something bad to us, and frankly speaking, they deserve it. However, once we develop a habit of ill will, and we try to do something harmful to someone or even the community or anyone surrounding, who has nothing to do with the hatred. Therefore, ill will is harmful to life no matter how little it is, and definitely ill will is unwholesome. We can abandon and avoid the danger of unpresented incident, but do not be trapped in it with ill will and hatred. 2. The y-axis of time frame associated with the object of consciousness. In other words, depression arises from thinking on miserable events in the past, whereas anxiety is rooted on concerns about potential future outcomes. A depression. Depression occurs when dealing with some terrible incidents that had already happened in the past, and the mind keeps on thinking of such incident again and again. The mind continuously dwells on past events. It loses touch with the present, trapping itself in a relentless cycle of unending suffering. Definitely, depression is totally our imaginary thinking. There is nothing real at the present moment. Investigating why the depression is harmful. Although we may know in advance that depression is harmful, but we still have to study how it happens. That is, whatsoever happening in the past cannot harm us anymore. Yes, it was painful in the past, but not now anymore as long as we do not think about it, and in this situation, conclusively we should not bother with them any longer. We can remind of something in the past as a lesson learnt and we will figure out how to avoid it not to happen again, But we should not punish ourselves again and again by the past memories, because no matter how many times we may think of it, nothing can be done, the past cannot be changed, and life has to move over. Let us focus on the present moment. Therefore, depression of thinking of bad experiences in the past again and again is harmful to life, not make any good, and definitely depression is unwholesome. We can learn lessons from past experiences, but we should not be trapped in it with depression. Anxiety. Anxiety is the counterpoint to depression. While depression anchors the mind in painful recollections of the past, anxiety is marked by an overwhelming worry about potential future. Anxiety occurs when dealing with some dangerous incident that may happen in the future. In this state, the mind becomes ensnared in a perpetual cycle of anticipatory fear and worries, trapping the individual in an endless loop. Investigating why the anxiety is harmful. Whatsoever that may happen in the future, it does not happen yet. It cannot harm us. Yes, it may be dangerous, and we can simulate the situation in every possibility. Then we have already made a plane for it. That is the most thing that we can do, and we should not bother with them any longer. Let it happen, and we will do our best. Being too much worries will only lessens our confidence and disrupts our plan. Therefore, anxiety of thinking of some danger or exciting event in the future again and again is harmful to life, and definitely anxiety is unwholesome. We can make some plans for the future, but we should not be trapped in it with anxiety. 3. The Z-axis of doubt. When the mind harbors doubts, it often wanders aimlessly, resulting in unfocused, scattered thoughts and a diminished ability to concentrate. Are the unwholesome thoughts of doubt with confusion. That is, the mind is driven by confusion of not knowing why something is happening just to me. Some questions like, why is this misfortune happening only to me? Why do others take advantage and hurt me? Why it does not happen to others? Where is justice or fairness in this situation? Investigating why the doubt is harmful. Thinking is an endless activity. We may question on anything in every possibility. As a matter of fact, questing is a basic quality of scientists and scholars. That is, the question is addressed with some backgrounds or reasons or hypothesis. After having question, then conduct an investigation to find answer. This is a kind of question with purpose in searching for solution. However, there are some questions that arises from nowhere, even seems to expect no answer at all. These kinds of troublesome doubt will keep on stirring up the mind, and eventually turning around into troublesome delusion. Therefore, doubt is harmful to life, and definitely doubt is unwholesome. We can ask question for answer, so that we can further make investigation, and search for the answer rightly. The mind can be visualized as an object moving in space by internal drive in responding to stimulus from the world in terms of the intensity of love or hate it feels in response to a particular object at a specific moment, referencing to what the thinking is about. When the mind becomes active in thinking, it can be in any direction of love or hate, past or future, or doubt of not knowing what to do. However, when it is overdue in any of these directions, it will be struggling in craving, and becomes more and more activated in thinking. This dynamic interplay of unwholesome thoughts compels the mind to struggle within the confines of the 5 lower fetters, keeping it active all the time, even during sleeping, as being evidenced by our dreams. As the mind becomes more active, the more difficult we can make an observation on the mind. Therefore, in the early part of the Buddhist practice, we have to contain the mind from thinking as much as possible, saying putting the mind in serenity, to be calm with seclusion. One of the greatest discoveries of the Buddha was the technique to contain the mind to be in serenity by establishing mindfulness to abandon unwholesome thoughts of the 5 lower fetters before dwelling to the right concentration. When the mind is thoroughly cleansed of these unwholesome influences, it retreats into a state of seclusion, settling into right concentration and paving the way for deeper meditative insight.